song Tennessee Whiskey, you do know that Chris Stapleton didn't write or make that music, right? Etta James made that music. So back in the 60s, a woman named Etta James released a song called I'd Rather Go Blind. And then in the 80s, Dean Dillon and Linda Hargrove wrote a song called Tennessee Whiskey, which they gave to David Allan Coe to sing in 1981. Fast forward to 2015, Chris Stapleton takes the lyrics from Tennessee Whiskey and the riff from I'd Rather Go Blind, and he makes a brand new song. Dean Dillon, Linda Hargrove, David Allan Coe were all credited for their lyrics on the new Tennessee Whiskey. Etta James, never credited for her work. You can look up both of these songs chord for chord. They're identical. A lot of dialogue about it on the internet. Look into it yourself. I don't know if TikTok will let me post the songs here, so I'm not going to. I have read that Chris Stapleton credits Aretha Franklin and Etta James for heavily inspiring his work growing up, but I have never seen him use Etta James's name in a sentence next to Tennessee Whiskey, and I think that's wild, because that's her song. You should have no problem saying her name. But I get it. Anything new has been pulled from something old. Art is done. We literally have AI making our art now. I get that. I also understand that copyright is difficult, especially if you were a black woman who was born in the 30s making music in the 60s. Like, could you imagine what kind of lawyer she had? But the reason Etta James needs to be credited for her work on Tennessee Whiskey goes beyond copyright or authenticity. It's because if Chris Stapleton wanted to make music with Etta James in the 60s, it would be damn near impossible with racism and segregation. So without Etta James's I'd Rather Go Blind, there would be no Tennessee Whiskey.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you for joining me here. We're going to talk about it Tuesdays on Conversations with Taz. As you can tell, I had to be an adult today. Yay. I have already pre-decided tomorrow I will not be an adult. I even purchased a onesie for that. So you were warned. Be prepared. Warn the others. Yeah. Also, quick disclaimer on this channel, outside of official news updates that I may put into the news segment, we will not be discussing the Hamas attack on Israel. There is a lot of nuance that goes into that. And right now, emotions are high. So no matter what you say, it can be misconstrued. And at no point do I want to even accidentally add to anybody's stress, strain, pain, or anything. So right now, news updates I am putting over on my TikTok account. And that's it. Especially with the amount of misinformation that's coming out. Just not going to touch it. Now, with that being said, we got a handy dandy pen. And we got a handy dandy note. And actually, let's flip this around. Okay. So, if you remember, Nancy Mace was one of the 8 that voted to oust Kevin McCarthy as Speaker, which has left Congress in shambles. But Nancy Mace, her claim to fame is being a sexual assault, sexual abuse victim advocate. She has been very vocal in her endorsement of Jim Jordan for Speaker. Excuse me. Now, over the weekend on Face the Nation, she claimed the following when asked about Jim Jordan. She said she doesn't know anything about the allegations against him stemming from the whole sexual assault scandal from Ohio State University. And then she went on to say he doesn't have any indictments that I know of. What? What? Huh? Now, she was a victim herself at the ages of 14 and 16. And it took her a couple decades to speak out. So she understands. And I only bring that up because we do have advocates who, fortunately have not been assaulted themselves. And there are people who say that they're advocates but don't understand the psyche of a victim and the guilt and the having to get over all of that and everything. But I know people who do not keep up with politics whatsoever. Okay. Their viewing, their whole life is around their work, their family, and sports. They know how egregious Jim Jordan is. But I guess. Now, there is some new UAW news. Now, 73% of Mack Truck UAW members voted to reject the company's latest offer, which resulted in 4,000 workers going on strike. I keep telling y'all, quit playing with these people. This ain't the time. This ain't the time. And for people that are like, "Oh, I'm anti-union," this is going to cause the prices to go up. Prices have already gone up. Hence the fact that people are striking because companies are not taking them seriously with contract renegotiations. They want to live. They want to live comfortably. They want to be paid their worth. If you have gone into debt to get a degree, a license, or whatever in order to do your job, or even if you didn't do that, you should be paid a livable wage. This is the time to strike. This is the time for you now to also make sure you're getting paid properly. Start having conversations with people where you work about who's getting paid what. They only told y'all that it was improper and against etiquette not to talk about wages so that you don't talk about it on the job to figure out that there are wage gaps. Because outside of your company, people have no problem asking you to your face how much you make. Child, I digress. Now on to Matt Gaetz. So the latest allegation, yes, latest. I'm telling you, as the Capitol turns, is really heating up. The latest allegation surrounding Matt Gaetz is that he used sugar daddy sites for sex. You know, kind of how that allegation was swarming around regarding Rafael Cruz and how Rafael, it was alleged that that's how Rafael met Lauren Boebert. But child, allegedly, Matt was introduced to the sites via a confidant, Joel Greenberg. Joel is also a former tax collector who is currently in federal custody for sex trafficking. He's awaiting trial and has currently pled guilty. I forgot to tag that video in the description of tonight's video, but I will remember tomorrow because there is a video, or you can look for it yourself in the news updates on this channel from when he got, because I'm like, how is Matt Gaetz skating DOJ indictments? But we know Mayor Garland, Jack Smith, all of them, they gonna make sure all of their ducks are in a row before they put those indictments down. So plus we need to see what's going to be in this ethics committee report. Now also, when Matt Gaetz was in the Florida house, he had a reputation for his sexual conquest. He's such a child. You really going to work still? Like he did this on the federal house floor at Capitol Hill, going to work, telling people who you bagged the night before, bragging, showing pictures, showing videos and everything else. First of all, anyone who has ever had sexual relations with Matt Gaetz, sue, file charges, because something tells me that you didn't agree to send him pictures or allow him to video you, and you gave him consent to show everybody else. And to Mrs. Gaetz, how much is he paying you for you to stick around? But anywho, also, his colleagues that happen to be women in the Florida house gave him the nickname Creepy Gaetz. First of all, y'all could have been more creative regarding that, but okay, whatever. Because he made them feel extremely uncomfortable. The representatives for Gaetz say, of course, the claims are false. Yeah, whatever. There's too many fires causing too much smoke around you, Gaetz. too much. And it's not like it's all coming from the same set of people. You got it coming from here, 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 here. And even before you were quote unquote a rising star, these things were coming out. And this goes to show the GOP doesn't care about family values. They don't care about protecting people. They don't care about any of that. Because if they did, we wouldn't have people like Jim Jordan, Matt Gaetz, Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Trump in politics. If I'm lying, I'm flying. But if you have not seen the package, I guess you could say, I put together regarding John Romano and articles and talking to the principal, it's linked in the description of this video. And I did a breakdown because there's a new series, just a mini series on this channel called Get Into It. Also tagged into here, but we do have a little bit more information, of course.
I just think it's crazy that you would talk about one-sided stories and extensive research. Because when I was looking up this case, the second website that popped up was something from a man named William Patricks. He's an award-winning writer in New York State. And he did a year-long investigation talking to that guy's classmates and teachers and the people that were present in the building, trying to put together a documentary that included everybody's perspective. But when it came time to release the documentary, the guy in question had his lawyer reach out and threaten to sue if they did that. How could you be sorry for something you did when years later you're still controlling the narrative and you won't allow the victims of that trauma to talk about the trauma that you inflicted upon them? And I'll pop it behind me so you can see it, babes. All the other articles are from his point of view. Long, lengthy pieces about how distraught he was while he was traumatizing other human beings. I can't stress enough that this is a strange and interesting hill to decide to plant your little bitty feet on. It speaks volumes about you as a person.
His goody two-shoe narrative is nothing but that. And he should be studied for multiple reasons. But if you really want to truly get a glimpse of why you should deconstruct from racism, he's it. Because white people have the ability to lie straight to your face and be defended. Have people come out of the woodwork and excuse your behavior. Because there is nothing giving anybody else's perspective. The few things that I could find that gave other people's perspectives, I put together. But other than that, But let's move on to Ms. Caitlyn Jenner, who has decided to pop back up and her views on Trump and the nation.
I really feel like if we do not, if Trump does not get in, I think that's the end of the country. I think it's, I hope not. I hope America is better than that. But we need a strong leader. And right now we do not have any leaders. We don't even have a country. I mean, can you imagine if the UK here opened up their borders and just let anybody in? And 10 million people came across the border in the next couple of years? What would happen to the UK? It'd be over. It would be over. It'd be overrun. You couldn't handle it. And that's exactly what's happening in our country. And I think the only one that would stop it is Trump. And so we'll see. We'll see. Put it this way. Whoever the Republican candidate winds up being, okay, because we haven't picked that yet, I will support that candidate.
Another prime example of white people being able to lie to our face. Now, the Republican Party itself, mainly Marjorie Taylor Greene, has already expressed the fact that we have the most secure borders now than we've had previously, especially under Trump, because we're seizing things left and right. We have more accurate counts of people crossing the border. But why are these people crossing the border? They're not crossing the border for fallacious intent. They're crossing the border because the United States cannot mind its own business. The United States is no different than crazy, bored, forced into marriage and forced into motherhood nosy Karens in the neighborhood. They think that they can raise everybody else's countries better than they can handle their own here. So as they're disseminating countries for the residents and citizens of those countries left and right, where else are they going to go? Because not only is the United States just screwing up countries all over the globe, they're still running their own propaganda campaign of we're the greatest, we're the best. Come here. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. This is the land of opportunity. You can come here and get rich. They make it seem like we're all just living a great, comfy life. And we don't have great leadership. What was Trump leading? Right now, we are watching the world go up in flames. And I'm going to say it because of Trump. Over the past few days, more and more stories have come out with backed up, confirmed evidence of Trump giving away classified information so he can make friends. I'm not talking like the 2 Navy seamen who got arrested because they were selling information that they came across. Because they were like, look, I'm going to make ends meet regardless. And I'm not saying that's right. Do not take it that way. But Trump is no different than the 20-something National Guardsman who was dumping information into Discord to impress people into friendship. That's leadership. And Caitlin, you think that the country is going to go to shit? Did you forget that you're a member of the trans community, the community that Trump right now is saying are groomers and disgusting and everything else? Did you miss that part? Snuckums. And speaking of the GOP and its views on, the trans community, where'd those notes go? Marjorie Taylor Greene seems to have a word or two for us. So let's get into this. This is coming from the Business Insider. One of Marjorie Taylor Greene's top priorities in a new speaker is advancing a bill to restrict trans children and adults from receiving gender-affirming care. But I want to point out something to you. All of these transphobes, whether they're performative transphobes, meaning they don't really believe it, but they want it for votes because they've convinced themselves that the majority of the country feels the same way that they do, or actual transphobes, they always point out that it's no gender affirming care for the trans community because they understand what's under the umbrella of gender affirming care, and that children, minors, non-adults have been able to get gender affirming care and puberty blockers since the 1980s. But let's continue. The key points. House Republicans are still figuring out who to support as the next Speaker of the House. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene said that the next Speaker needs to support a restrictive bill of hers. The bill would prohibit any taxpayer-funded gender-affirming care, as well as care for minors. But aren't members of the trans community taxpayers? Here's a thought that I have. Here's a thought. If you want to pass legislation to prevent taxpayers from being able to partake in things that their tax dollars go to, don't take that portion of taxes out of them. Leave it in their wages. If you're going to prevent people from it, don't take it. And let's see how long they keep doing this. Now, I'm not too concerned because Marjorie has yet to successfully get anything even passed through her own house, let alone Congress as a whole. No one ever takes any of her bills seriously. Her staffers must love wasting time, but I guess a check is a check. Okay, a check is a check, and we know it's hard out here for a pimp. Get your money the way you can. But let's see. GOP Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene said one of the top priorities in choosing a new Speaker of the House is if they'll help bring her bill restricting transgender children and adults from receiving gender affirming health care to a floor vote. Asked by Fox News's Maria Bartiromo on Sunday as to which GOP Speaker candidate she plans to support to replace Representative Kevin McCarthy, she pointed to a bill that she introduced earlier in the year. Honey, you had Kevin McCarthy by the balls, okay? By the balls. You had even gotten into his inner circle and was having dinners with them. You had him by the balls. And he wouldn't even get your bill to a floor vote. That means you have no co-sponsors. And let's not forget, not too long ago, when it started to look like there was a shift regarding the HBIC in the GOP over to Lauren Boebert, that used to be her bestie. Now they just smesty. Bars. Marjorie Taylor Greene threw a whole fit going, nobody even co-sponsored my bill, but they want her bill. Neither bill is going anywhere. Y'all are two airheaded idiots that they use as puppets on the news to say the stuff that will get everybody votes that nobody else wants to attach their name, reputation, or anything to. Like, wake up, smell the coffee, and not the burning toast. But now, remember a couple months ago, we heard about DeSantis really messing with the church's money as far as insurance with Florida. And we were like, oh, how's that going to work out? Because hurricane season is about to hit. And now we know.
This woman's insurance has gone through the roof. It has increased so much, she's thinking about leaving the state.
I called my friend Bobby in Costa Rica. I said, maybe it's time to get out of here.
Beth just found out her insurance premium is increasing by $2,000. In the past 2 years, Beth has watched it more than double.
Now, all of you Magadonians who jumped up and rushed down to Florida because you thought Florida was going to be a red utopia, how's that working out for you? Because you already weren't paid very well. You couldn't be. Because you don't have two brain cells to rub together to even start a spark. Now what? Premiums keep going up in a state where yes, everybody should have insurance everywhere. We're all adults. Realistically, everybody doesn't, because everybody can't afford it every year, every month, everything. Sometimes people have to let it lapse for a minute because life happens. And there are some places where you can skate by for a period of time and you know when to pick up that policy and you got enough time that, yes, it will cover what you need it to cover. Florida is not one of those places, okay? Between Florida man, Florida woman, and then Florida minions and the Florida climate, this seems to be controlled by Mother Nature of the West, the wicked stepsister of Mother Nature. And there are people who really think that Ron DeSantis should take control of the United States. If you thought we went through a shit show with Trump, I guess if you have a weird kink on wanting to thoroughly cosplay Nazi Germany, go ahead. I'm not going to do it. Okay? I would rather live on a blow-up boat in the middle of the Atlantic. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure Amazon will still find a way to deliver. Now let's talk about AI and why Congress is talking about it.
It's a battle that not many people know about, but you need to, because it's only going to intensify in the years ahead. It's the battle against disinformation, and Maya Wiley is a leading voice in the efforts to ensure that disinformation bolstered by artificial intelligence does not significantly impact American democracy. On September 27, she testified in front of the Senate Rules Committee, and she said,
expanding the opportunity in the depth of not only disinformation in the sense of elevating falsehoods about where people vote, whether they can vote, how to vote. That goes directly to the ability of voters to select candidates of their choice and exercise their franchise lawfully. And we have seen that it disproportionately targets communities of color.
Article from Klepper and Switson raised some great questions that anchor Wiley's warnings. AI tools can clone human voices, create realistic images and audio in seconds. We have to be vigilant in our efforts to discern media, but also in our efforts to fight our leaders to do their part in protecting us by regulating and encouraging the appropriate use of AI for our good and not our harm or the harm of democracy.
Now, earlier this year, I showed some videos that were making its rounds on Twitter specifically, where people were buying into it and showing people how to spot out like the earlier iterations of AI being used to create deep fakes. For the past few years, and people thought that folks were being paranoid and that the media was fear mongering, when there were different news reports on the local, mostly on local levels, where they were saying if you get a call, don't answer the phone, hello, or anything else, because they're waiting for you to say hello a couple times to make sure that they have it in different intonations. And then somebody would come on and ask you a bunch of questions that would just irritate you until you hung up, because they're trying to get you to say certain words so that they could replicate it. People are like, oh, yes, they are. And just because you don't have a lot of money or you're not, it doesn't matter. There was a period of time that identity thieves were fixing people's credits in order to steal their identity. Like, yeah, they were doing credit repair for you so that they could use that credit. Don't ever underestimate someone. But also, this is why I say have patience when it comes to the news, because the news is just reporting on history as it occurs. Just like last week, there was a story that broke that so many people were talking about all over all sorts of social media platforms, claiming that Kevin McCarthy had announced that he was going to resign. He never made such an announcement. Politico ran the article. Politico was the only one who ran the article. Within 45 minutes of that going out and everybody going viral, he came out and was like, no, I'm also running for re-election. Not stepping down, not going anywhere. We know Kevin McCarthy is too egotistical for anything. He sold his soul and sold away basically all the powers of the position that he wanted so badly. He's not going anywhere. He may not throw his hat back in the ring now, although now he's starting to teeter, but he will eventually, even if it's when under the next election, if they keep the majority or they increase their majority, who knows? But have patience and don't be afraid to Google something like, okay, if you get news alerts and you only get one alert about something, because keep in mind, in this day and age, PR firms are working overtime. And we know the GOP, as well as white supremacists, love to lie. Their latest lie is that at the White House, Joe Biden is walking around kicking dogs. I kid you not. With hundreds of people around him at any given time, Joe Biden is just booting the dogs all over the place. So have patience, be diligent. And with AI, there's always some type of glitch. There's always something that's going to be off. Even when they try to change, like they'll take a real video and then just change the audio. Yeah, if you're not repeating back exactly what the person said, the lips aren't necessarily going to match. Now, let's talk about the media and President Biden.
It's just you, me, and my morning coffee talk about why the mainstream media is constantly getting it wrong. Or I don't know, maybe they're getting it right, depending on what side of the political spectrum you lean and your perceptions of the media. This is a CNN headline. Now we know that CNN is no longer a left-leaning member of the mainstream media. We can talk about why that is in another video. There's not just CNN, there's plenty of other mainstream media channels that are giving Biden what I like to call complissalts. It's part compliment, part assault. I took it from the show Community. Because when you see an article framed like this, that's reporting good news on the economy, like the job report has come out and it's good news, instead of just giving the Biden administration that, we see why the shockingly good jobs report is going to cost you. They really want to make fetch happen. The mainstream media is so desperate for a battle in 2024 that they are doing everything they can to put Biden in a questionable light, even when he's done good. I have a folder of other headlines I've saved and I can't find them, so I'll have to do a part 2. But basically what I want you to do from now on is to start looking at the headlines, not just from CNN. Obviously, you shouldn't be getting your news from there anyway. I hope you're not. But like any news source and any creator that you're watching and following, what does the title say? What is it really saying? Dig deep and think back to your days in your media and politics classes, which for some of us was quite a long time ago. So I encourage you to stay in touch, follow up, tag me in anything that you see, or post it in the comments below. Happy Friday!
Also, I want to say this because a lot of people don't realize this. Many people are familiar with the name William Randolph Hearst, right? But most people aren't familiar with the type of journalism he basically created. It's called yellow journalism. You see it a lot and you don't realize it. There was a point in time where basically what they call gossip rags, like the National Enquirer and stuff like that, Sun, would be the ones to use it. Now it's more mainstream, where there's a headline that catches you and gives the deception, the impression, the perception that it encapsulates the whole story. No, it's to draw you in, but most people don't go past the headline to read it. Because how would an increase of jobs cost you? Let me guess. When you hire more people, the prices go up. No, you need to hire more people because the prices go up. People need more hours and more pay because the prices have gone up. Y'all keep increasing the cost of living, but nothing else. What would more people being employed cost you? Nothing? Cool. But that's not the only thing that's being hidden from you regarding Biden. And I wish the White House would do a better job. And yes, I know the White House can't really be PR for Biden, but his campaign staffers can be. Yes, I know, especially right now, there are bigger fish to fry. I get that. But a lot of people, there's going to be a lot of vote splitting because the truth isn't there. And the ones that are the loudest are always the ones that are taken the most seriously and believed is true. Because, you know, that whole squeaky wheel bullshit we've all been taught. So take a look at what Black people specifically need to know about what's going on in the Biden administration.
I'm going to share information with you about the Biden administration that they are not talking about in the news, and we all know why, because it's benefiting Black Americans. I left my job in June 2023 and relaunched my consulting company. Since that time, I have signed $1 million worth of contracts just for my consulting company, and I'm not even done with the meetings or with the organizations that are willing to work with me. In 2021, he announced how he's going to fix the racial wealth gap. I believe history books are going to look back at this time and show that this is going to be the largest transfer of wealth to Black communities in the United States of America during the Biden administration, and the news is not reporting on it. I'm wondering why. In order to see all the money he is distributing to Black Americans, you have to go to whitehouse.gov or the Treasury. You have to go to administration websites and read their press releases. But this one right here says $8.28 billion was signed by Biden to give over to CDFIs and other alternative financial institutions to help Black-owned businesses get money to create for community and economic development. This is where I'm getting my contracts, because once that money gets to the state of Michigan, they have to have somebody to implement the programming and help with community engagement and outreach for community and economic development. Again, not being talked about in the mainstream media, but $125 million invested for minority-owned businesses. Not being talked about in the news, but it says here that the Black families included by expanding the Child Independent Care Tax credit for families with 2 kids under 13 receive up to $8,000 towards their child care expenses, compared to the maximum of a previous $1,200. That is huge. Here under the Biden administration, it has been the largest expansion of women's business centers at HBCUs in over 30 years. Again, not going to be reported by the media. This was announced as soon as Biden took office in 2021. Again, not being talked about in the mainstream media, but the Biden-Harris administration piloted a program targeting access to capital for underserved entrepreneurs. And you know what the result is? The amount of SBA loans that have gone to Black-owned businesses has more than doubled since 2020. I could only find one article about it on Yahoo Finance, not being reported or talked about in the mainstream media. He's also increasing opportunities for Black American families to purchase homes. Here in the state of Michigan, we have an extra $15,000 for minorities to purchase a home before the end of the year or whenever the money runs out. Again, not being reported by the mainstream media. You have to go to whitehouse.gov to see what his plans were, when the things were implemented, when he let the press release out, and when he put the money out into the country for these benefits for Black American families. I will try to find some more articles, but I definitely know a lot of the stuff is on the whitehouse.gov site, and I'll do a part 2 because there's so much money that Biden is putting out, billions and billions of dollars, to advance Black Americans, their families, their opportunities to get jobs, to start businesses, to buy homes, and there's not being talked about in the mainstream media. I wonder why.
They can't gerrymander the vote anymore. The Supreme Court already said, no, we're not going with that. Even with the problematic people with external and internal racism sitting on SCOTUS, they can no longer gerrymander the vote as they did before. So how else is the GOP going to get their red sprinkle that they really want? Because we know a red wave is just not going to happen. By lying. And even if they don't get the vast majority of Black vote, because they know how valuable the Black vote is, it can make or break an election. Let's be real. They want enough. That's why right now they're playing into the red pill Black men to pull them over. And most importantly, they're playing to the hands of the white liberal. That's why you're getting a lot of targeted messaging from Republican sycophants right now. We know they go to a handful of sources who all pretty much say the same thing. They get the same script. And these people just regurgitate it with no thinking. You know, Biden is racist. You know, he's not doing anything for Black people. Trump had this plan. Trump had a plan put on a piece of paper. It wasn't even a full plan. It was not thought out. It came out right before the last election. It was basically a flyer. So, of course, the media wants that old school political tussle. If you've been following any of my history segments and going through the different parts and components of United States government, they've been getting off on this for decades since the government was created and established within the United States. They want this political, oh, I'm the big man, I'm the alpha male, I'm the they like this. And the media, see, people try to separate news shows from sitcoms and dramas and reality TV. News is the OG reality TV. If you think they're not concerned about ratings, honey, yes, they are. Why do you think Fox is willing to endure lawsuit after lawsuit after settlement? And they don't care. They're going to placate into whatever's going to get them ratings. And right now, the credible news sources, they need a good story. They need that back and forth. They need to have reporters up on Capitol Hill. Who do you stand behind? Who do you stand behind? Why? Why are they stronger? Why are they better? Ooh, would you come together with them? Would you come to? It's like War of the Roses, but in politics. That's what they want. They know the United States is driven off of drama. When people refer, like boomers especially, to their favorite shows, favorite movies, what is it riddled with? Drama. When people get together for tea, for coffee, to watch the game on Sunday, everybody, male, female, non-binary, what drama. And Biden has shown he's not giving you drama. He's not buying into the drama. He's going to do his job and keep it pushing. We no longer have Steve Bannon heading the DOJ. We have Merrick Garland, who's going to come out, give you the facts, get back to his job as we need it to be. We don't need people spending all their time and energy and our money, our tax dollars, on giving us Bad Girls Club on Capitol Hill. As much as we love to joke about, as the Capitol turns, it's better when you don't have anything to talk about except the legislation being passed. They want that coverage they got from Camelot. There's no babies being born, so they don't have that. There's no mistress. They don't have that. They need something for the ratings. And they're tired of talking about Trump. Yes, the hottest thing right now are all of these cases, criminal and civil, regarding Trump. Lawsuits utilizing the 14th Amendment to prevent him from being on the ballot. Civil cases, class action cases, criminal case. Yes, but they're tired of it. Nobody likes Trump, but nobody will get on air and say it. So they want that tussle. They want that 1920s, 1930s political tussle for ratings, so that they can increase the amount that they charge for ads. So they can go to DirecTV, Spectrum, Dish, all of these places and go, hey, we hot and popping. We hot newness. We not old and busted. You want us on there so people will get your services and keep your services? Give us more money. That's what it is. And they're really afraid because a lot of people nowadays are getting more accurate news and news quicker off of social media, especially off of TikTok. Because really all you need is your phone and a clear view of whatever's going on. You don't even have to talk. Boom, you got the news. You know what's going on. When people first started to take note of the amount of police brutality targeted at specifically the Black community, I was getting better news and eyewitness accounts from Facebook Lives at the time. So keep that in mind. And speaking of Trump, Also coming from, excuse me, the Business Insider, Alan Weisselberg, Trump's loyal ex-CFO, calls tripling the size of Trump's penthouse and financial records a minor mistake. Isn't it amazing that all these people with decades of experience, very expensive education and training get to claim that the most egregious and or deadliest thing are little bitty mistakes? But those of us that don't have any of that, our reaction to it, never mind, child. Key points from the article. Trump's loyal ex-CFO Alan Weisselberg began court-ordered testimony in the New York civil fraud trial. The former top numbers man is not quite halfway through collecting $2 million in severance. On the stand Tuesday, Weisselberg called tripling the size of Trump's penthouse a minor mistake. Weisselberg, you just wrapped a prison stint because of a previous case regarding the Trump org and you being found guilty for cooking the books. Don't go back to jail, because I feel like this might be a parole violation. Like, don't play stupid. They already know what you did. You already testified to the egregiousness. Why now? Is it because you're still getting a severance package? Baby, when they dissolve the... Never mind. When they start dissolving those... Anywho. When New York Attorney General Letitia James makes a list of Donald Trump's alleged hyper-exaggerations of his worth, his tripling of the square footage of his triplex penthouse in Manhattan's Trump Tower is typically at the top. On Tuesday, Trump Organization's ex-CFO Alan Weisselberg took the stand as James's civil fraud trial began its second week, and he suffered some hard grilling concerning James's favorite Trumpian tall tale. Throughout the morning, as the AG's civil fraud trial began its second week in a Manhattan courtroom, Weisselberg repeatedly minimized the significance of the triplex to Trump's larger fiscal picture and insisted, "I don't recall," to seemingly a third or more of the questions lobbed his way. Did he forget about his previous testimony? That can be used against him. Of course he did. He's an old white man. First, though, came two little bombshells. Weisselberg testified early on in the morning that he is still in the midst of pocketing the installments of a $2 million severance package for his work at Trump org. But you already went to prison for this man. Is that why Trump didn't really say anything harsh about you? He's still paying for your loyalty? Like, you already told. That's why they were found guilty. Weisselberg was earning a $1.4 million salary last year when he was accused of shading the truth on Trump's behalf in a Manhattan district attorney's payroll tax fraud case against Trump org. Second, the judge in the non-jury trial was shown a 1994 real estate record that accurately listed the triplex's square footage as 10,996, not the 30,000 square feet that Trump claimed in official net worth statements in 2012 through 2016. It's becoming more and more clear exactly why he didn't want to release those tax records and why he had his minions fighting in Congress against the addition of so many new IRS workers. That's why they were lying to people, talking about they're going to be armed guards, they're going to be coming after you. No. This potentially Trump-incriminating document, projected on a courtroom screen, was signed by the former president personally. Testimony revealed that the document sat in a file cabinet right outside Weisselberg's office at Trump org headquarters in Trump Tower, where presumably anyone could have checked it to confirm the triplex's size. "I just don't recall whether there were any," Weisselberg said when asked by Assistant Attorney General Louis M. Solomon if there were file cabinets containing real estate records and appraisals just outside his office door. Solomon heads the AG's Real Estate Finance Enforcement Section. See, the Trump Tower condominium declaration shown in court Tuesday that Trump signed in 1994 and again in 1997, showing that, at least back then, he knew how big his own triplex apartment was. Weisselberg repeatedly testified that he did not recall certain details of how the now admitted error wound up included in 5 years of financial statements, which Trump used to win better interest rates from banks. Trump org executives rushed out the still uncorrected 2016 net worth statement, even though 4 days prior, a reporter from Forbes had asked multiple executives about the tripling of the triplex's size. Solomon tried to show through Weisselberg's testimony. As you sit here today, you don't recall if you did anything or you directed anyone to do anything to correct the square footage with Forbes or in the 2016 statement, Solomon asked Weisselberg. I don't recall, Weisselberg answered. I look at the big numbers, he explained. That seems like that's a big number. That seems like a pretty big number. But you know, why tell the truth? Now, after we got another cycle of George Santos, because you know, last week his former treasurer came out and dropped a dime on him, took a plea deal, and is willing to testify against him. But coming from CBS News, George Santos charged with conspiracy, wire fraud, and more. Embattled New York Representative George Santos was indicted on new federal charges on Tuesday in a superseding indictment, including conspiracy, wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, and credit card fraud, just days after his former campaign treasurer pleaded guilty and admitted to much of the conduct, according to court documents. Prosecutors in the Eastern District of New York newly alleged that Santos and ex-campaign treasurer Nancy Marks submitted false financial reports to the Federal Election Commission that inflated the campaign's fundraising numbers in an effort to qualify for certain perks, benefits, and support from Republican Party leaders. Before he got elected, he did lose pretty bad the year before, and he didn't think to go and schmooze and network. No, he wanted to white man his way through this. Okay, let's keep going. The 10 new charges included in the superseding indictment, unsealed Tuesday, also include fresh allegations that Santos used individuals' personal credit card information to make unauthorized charges in support of his political campaign. The victims, according to the charges, were previous donors to the campaign who had provided their personal information when contributing funds to Santos. How Trump of him. In one instance, the court documents unsealed Tuesday revealed Santos allegedly racked up $15,800 in charges on the contributor's credit card, a sum far higher than federal campaign laws permit. That donor did not know or authorize charges exceeding such limits, prosecutors said. With what Santos is accused of doing and his indictment, I'm shocked that him and Trump aren't besties, that they aren't buddies, that Trump didn't call down and tell Gates and MTG to pass his number on to Santos, because they are cut from the same cloth. They are two peas in one pod. Santos pleaded not guilty earlier this year to a slew of charges from an original indictment that included accusations that he devised an alleged scheme to defraud prospective supporters of his 2022 congressional campaign. Prosecutors alleged he used solicited campaign donations on personal expenses, including luxury designer clothes, credit card and car payments, and payments on personal debts. Are we sure one of his identities doesn't contain the last name of Trump? Are we certain about that? The congressman is set to appear in federal court on October 27, where he will likely be arraigned on the new charges against him. Representatives for Santos's office and his defense attorney did not respond to CBS News's multiple requests for comment. Investigators allege that Santos, Marks, and others were aware in 2021 of a $250,000 fundraising threshold that the campaign had to meet to qualify for Republican Party backing. I wonder, I wonder if there's going to be indictments underway regarding the former staffer that left and told Santos to come clean. because they're saying other people knew about this too. So that means other people were involved in it. So we're going to do this a little differently. I got it. Santos allegedly said in a text message responding to the questions about the funding qualification court documents reveal, and subsequently hatched a plan with Marks to falsely claim that 10 donors, including some of his family members, contributed thousands of dollars to his campaign when in fact they had not. No, nobody's overseeing this. Nobody's going back to check the homework. Nobody. Okay. Those false donations, according to the superseding indictment, were then allegedly included on a Federal Election Commission year-end report. Santos and Marks, the new charging documents alleged, knew that none of these reported contributions were true. The pair also allegedly lied about a loan they said Santos had provided to his campaign in an effort to bolster the campaign's prospects heading into the election. In April 2022, according to the superseding indictment, the Santos campaign published fake fundraising totals and reported to both National Party officials and the FEC that Santos had loaned his campaign $500,000. Prosecutors said Santos had less than $8,000 in his personal and business bank accounts at the time. I'm surprised he had that. Well, no, because he seems to like credit cards. Not ones that belong to him, but credit cards. All right. Okay. Because I guess that's what we're doing now. Now, we know that institutions of higher learning, especially those that are PWIs, predominantly white institutions, I like to call them HWIs, historically white institutions, are worse than museums. Okay, they love to store bodies, but Harvard has really upped the ante. They took legacy to a whole new level. Okay, take a look. Well, hold on. Let's put that up there. Here we go.
So y'all remember that guy that was selling body parts out of Harvard Medical? Well, there's been a bunch of people that's been indicted, and some of these things are starting to move now, and they are getting weird. This lady was using the body parts in dolls that she was selling.
Katrina McClain actually came to the morgue here at Harvard Medical School to buy some of those human remains to then sell online or at her store in Peabody. Why would you do something like this? Katrina McClain had no comment for us as she left federal court in Boston Wednesday. She's one of 7 now charged with buying and selling stolen human remains across the country. McClain, who's from Salem, Mass., owned Cat's Creepy Creations, a business in Peabody where she sold creepy dolls and creations that shock the mind, according to the Instagram page for her business. That's also where she stored and sold some of those human body parts, according to court documents. Prosecutors say McClain would get those human remains from Cedric Lodge, the morgue manager at Harvard's medical school. Court documents say in or about October 2020, Katrina McClain agreed to purchase 2 dissected faces for $600 from Cedric Lodge, and they agreed to meet at Harvard Medical School for the transaction. These body parts were all donated for medical research. In June and July 2021, McClain shipped human skin to Jeremy Pauley in Pennsylvania, one of the key players in this multi-state scheme. McClain engaged his services to tan the skin to create leather. Then later that month, prosecutors say McClain reached out to Lodge to get more human skin to send to, quote, the dude I sent the chest piece to tan. In October 2021, Jeremy Pauley sent $8,800 to McClain via PayPal for stolen human remains. McClain's attorney wouldn't comment on the case after she was arraigned.
She's never been in trouble before, and obviously this was very distressful. She just wants to be home with her family.
And McClain was released from court today on several conditions, including that she should have no contact with any potential victims, witnesses, or co-defendants in this case. She's also due to appear in a court in Pennsylvania at a later date, and she could face up to 10 years in prison for this.
Now, my real question is, those dolls that have body parts, how are they going to find who has those dolls? And like, people are just buying dolls with body parts, like real human body. There are some weird people out there, some just sick, weird people out there.
Keep in mind that there was a cast taken of Ted Bundy's teeth, and there are people who for decades paid the dentist who took the mold to imprint it on their skin, and a lot of them had that imprint tattooed in. There are people who will, let's not forget that there was a haunted house that people went to once they found out that there was a real dead body in it, real skeletal remains. We're talking about a nation that had a trend for quite a while of taking death photos, posing the dead with their family members. This is also a nation where, from local cops all the way up to G-men, when they had major arrest, basically they killed someone, they'd stand the bodies up in a wooden casket and take pictures of them and take pictures with them. But imagine you not knowing. You're going to a store thinking that you're just buying a doll. You may be goth. You may be into the macabre, and you just think it's just a regular old toy. Imagine watching the news and realizing that the leather pieces on this that you purchased. And let us not forget that there were cookbooks called The Delectable Negro. Let us not forget that there's furniture that still exists, that the cushioning was Black people's hair. Let us not forget that we had founding fathers and presidents whose dentures were made from the pulled teeth of enslaved people. That there were parties of white people purchasing the remains of Egyptian royalty right out of the tombs to grind them up. My question is, how was he advertising to find these people, and where are these people in this economy getting hundreds of thousands of dollars to pay for these things? And how was nobody noticing that these things were going missing at Harvard? This isn't Chucky's Community College on 5th and Vine. So who else was involved? I cannot. Well, as always, thank you for joining me here for Conversations with Tess, specifically here on Talk About It Tuesdays. Please, please, please make sure you click like on this episode. Make sure you share it, please, and check out the links in the description of this video. Por favor. And I will see you all tomorrow for Get Into It with Taz and Chris. Until then, as always, each one teach one, each one reach one. And let's just end it with a little white man fragility.
They flew a pride flag right over there on those poles, underneath the flag. I can't fly my flag there for a home month.
Well, what flag would you want to put up there?
A Christian flag or white men count too.
Do you feel that white men are being marginalized in the country?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah.
And what's an evidence of that? What's evidence of that?
Oh, come on, man.
Well, just like an example of one example of it.
Well, the example of what we were just talking about. You know, BLM, Black Lives Matter, women's lives matter. But what about older white men's? Our lives matter too. There you go. There's one example.